Hi, I'm Patrick Smith, and welcome to today's segment of Gov Conversations with Susan Eggleston, VP, Solution Architects and System Engineers at Deltek. Today we'll be discussing incurred cost audits.
Can you briefly explain what an incurred cost audit is?
At the end of every fiscal year, every government contractor turns in their incurred cost submission report. The auditing agency, typically DCAA, is the one that comes in at the end of a period of time and takes a look at all of the audit report information and makes sure that the costs have been recorded correctly and that they've been correctly allocated for any shared cost across the organization.
How long does it take to get an incurred cost audit completed?
The incurred cost audits can take some time to complete. Currently, DCAA is a little backlogged. It's running about 6 years to actually get a final incurred cost audit done, and that's primarily because they've got about 25,000 outstanding incurred cost audits at the end of 2011. They've got about 4,500 auditors on staff, so basic math tells us that it's going to take them a while to get through all of this backlog. They've been trying to deploy a couple of techniques to get them through the backlog a little faster. They've done some sampling techniques, but the auditors themselves have been getting audited and haven't had the most favorable audit reports at times. And so they actually, as a result of their unfavorable reports, were lowering the materiality thresholds down a little bit, which actually makes the audits take longer because they're looking at very low dollar transactions in many cases.
So the time it takes to complete these audits seems like a burden onto the government contractors. Is that true?
Absolutely. If you can imagine holding on to all of your records for 6 years and then having an auditor come back in and question everything with a turnover in staff, sometimes a turnover of systems that you may have, sometimes it's really challenging for firms to go back and bring out all of that information. Having systems that have history information available and having it readily accessible at any given moment in time is critical to them to be able to get that information and make sure that it's easily accessible.
Do you get the sense that the compliance process comes into play when contractors are selecting their business systems?
Absolutely, and it should. I'd love to think that all government contractors to begin with have thought about the fact that they may one day go out and get a government contract, and they start their firm by starting with a financial system and an accounting system and business systems that are focused on government compliance. That's not really the case. That's not reality. What happens is a firm begins, they start doing some business, they realize that there's a possibility of getting government contracts, and they start to grow their firm. As that firm grows, they become more complex, they have additional items that come up that they need to have, and eventually they face an audit. When they face an audit, they realize how important that really should have been to begin with, and they realize that because of the struggles they're going through to get the information. That's when we sometimes get a phone call to see what we can do to help.
Are there any tips that you can give to the contracting community to help them through an ICS?
The top 3 tips that come to mind for any government contractor out there would be to establish their business policies, make sure that they've got them documented, train all of their employees on those business policies, and to select a system and implement a business system that is project-based and focused on compliance.